want you to think back to the first time you ever remember being truly afraid. What was it? Does it stick with you today? This is the sort of thing that we talk about on the House of Asher. Won't you join us? The House of Asher, a clearinghouse for the mind. And hello, everybody. This is House of Asher. I'm your host, Stevie Asher. This is episode 34. It's crazy that we're at that point now. It's been kind of a start and go situation. I'm relearning the craft, as it were, after many years away from radio, and this is sort of kind of different because you actually have the ability to kind of run and come and go as you want to with it. This episode is pretty cool, as I hope most of them are, but I really like what we're getting ready to do on this one. Growing up in this area, a lot of people will hear about ghosts and things, but not a lot of people necessarily know about the UFO situations that happen in Western Kentucky, and that is where my special guest comes in today. I would like to introduce Miss Geraldine Stith to the show. Hello, Geraldine. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steve. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's been kind of a long time coming, and I appreciate us finally being able to kind of cross paths enough to get this done, and again, I appreciate you taking your time out to do so.
Well, no problem. I love doing it. It's like I've always said, any day is a good day when you talk about green men.
Exactly right. Well, what a lot of people don't know, I've mentioned it before in some interviews here and there, be it coast to coast or whatever, and said that there was a few people that were really there for me coming up into this whole thing. And, I'm still very much a small fish in a big pond, but just the little things about editing and writing and all this and that, and kind of little bumps in the road and big holes in the road to avoid, and the whole process of doing that and learning, and you were a large part of that, and I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I could help. I didn't know I helped that much, but I'm glad I could. Well,
you sure did. I mean, it was one of those things too that and let me swell your head there for a second. One of the great things about you, and there's more than one, there's several, but the thing that I always liked is the fact that you've always, said, well, here's the story, here it is. You really haven't variated it, you haven't added to it, you haven't, sometimes it's, memories change a little bit, but your stuff had always stayed constant with your story, and the fact is you've always been really approachable about it. I've seen some people, just due to the fact of it, dealing with media, dealing with people coming into your lives, and it's not always like, I try to come at someone and go, look, I've been a fan, this is a very interesting story, would you grace me with an interview, or would you possibly consider speaking to me about this? I've known that, whenever all this went down with your family in the day, and we'll get into the story in a moment, I know there was, it seemed like it was kind of a hot, one way and then the other type in regards of reactions from the media, and then I'm sure that people were wanting to sensationalize it and wanting to do all this and that, and did you have a whole lot of that from what you were told from your forebears about the event? It was kind of a circus in that area for a while, wasn't it?
Yes, very much so. I mean, back in 1955, of course, you got to think this is something that you didn't really think about back then. It's not like now where people are more into it. You have our media, you have people out there that will openly talk about such things as alien abductions, all that type of thing, where back then you didn't. And so it was a big media event because back then you had papers and magazines mostly, of course radio. TV wasn't that big yet, but it was getting there. My family didn't have a TV, they had a radio. So, totally different back then, and people, of course, made fun of the whole situation, wouldn't believe it. And so, yeah, it was hard on my family, really, really hard. And people don't realize how hard it was.
Well, you talk about, like you said, the way the media was so different. I believe at that time that I think you had Fate magazine and some. I don't want to say fringe magazines, but people saw these things as fantastical, purely science fiction. There's no basis in any sort of legitimacy, and when you come out with a story or an encounter like this, I can see why so many people would keep dummied up about it, due to the fact that you could have had your entire life, you could be sober as a judge and honest as Abe and whatever, hardworking as whomever, and then you have this thing that you didn't ask for, and then suddenly sometimes the tables flip. And I've known from talking from other experiencers and people that have had encounters that sadly sometimes that's still the same. I mean, we have had strives, and you probably would not have had, say, the impact of something like Independence Day or something like that, or stepping off into stuff like Contact, which was a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more positive. It wasn't us against them as bad, which your situation certainly seemed like it was an us against them. But it just does seem that, like you said, like your guys' situation and the lumps that you all took sort of laid the path, they kind of walked on your back. What's going on today, you guys kind of laid down and took it, for now to be a little bit more, people to be accepting and to look at it at least in the concept of going, well, that we've had so many years, throughout history, honestly, of encounters and visitations and whatnot. And, even if you go back into the early days when people were thinking, well, maybe this is a fairy or this is a goblin, or a ghost, aliens can, in their abilities or whatever, seem to be able to phase through matter. They can affect matter, come and go, appear and go, and disappear on a dime. So maybe a lot of those things that was misconstrued as something paranormal and ghostly was maybe something otherworldly.
Right, and it was at first. I mean, they are called the Hopkinsville Goblins for a reason. They did think at first that it could have been something paranormal. My grandmother was really religious, and of course they thought that it was something the devil had brought forth.
Sure.
They had no clue it could have been something from outer space. It wasn't until later on that they finally concluded that they were probably aliens, simply for the fact that people came forward from that night saying they seen lights, they heard noises. A lot went on that night that people don't realize. And because of that, later on it was concluded that they were aliens. I still have people today come to me and say that, maybe they were paranormal. Well, I don't think so. There was too many things seen that night, as far as the craft in the sky, the oval object, the light, the noises it was making, So you put all that together, and then the little bodies themselves,
Sure.
alien.
Well, ghosts aren't usually flying around in spaceships. That's not how they operate, and or whatever we call ghosts or spirits. But
We don't think so anyway.
No. Well, but I mean, and that's the thing, and thank God for those other people who did have another vantage of sort of what was seen and what was going on, for the fact that, because there's nothing worse than being, I was out on the country road, or I was out fishing, or I was whatever, coming in from the farm, getting ready to do, and especially if you're country people, because people are going to look at you like you're hayseed, and that you have no lick of sense, and you come out and they retell it like they said, yeah, I done seen it. It was that big old sucker, that big, and so they want to characterize that and make it sort of stereotype it, but thank goodness that there was some collaborating evidence, and like you said, the situation with the craft and all that.
Well, and the fact that the next morning, the military was there combing the ground. You don't hear this, but I wrote about this in my second book, but they came, combed the ground, and they did find something. They hid it. They didn't want anybody to see what they found, and they actually stuck it in the back of one of the trucks, and the truck took off. What was it? We don't know. Will we ever know? Probably not. And there's that fact also. So, there's a lot of little things that people don't realize about this story. They just want to throw it under the rug. My family, of course, it's 1955. They were poor farmers, uneducated hillbillies, and that's one reason it was swept under the rug is because of that.
Well, Well, I was going to say also you take in consideration, we'll get back to the thing that they put in the back of the vehicle. Take into consideration, too, coming out of World War II, we're going right into the Cold War. Everyone's antsy, everyone's scared, the Red Menace and all that. People wanted everything's fine, everything's good, listen to Perry Como, do the twist, and everybody's try to keep the peace. Let's not have a scare,
Right.
I'm sure there was a certain element of that involved in it.
Right. And another thing people didn't realize either, and a lot of people don't know until somebody like me mentioned that, Fort Campbell, which, of course, was down the road, had a nuclear arsenal hidden. And, that's another one of the things that we wonder about, could they have been going that direction and just happened to land in the wrong area, because of this. Because if you think about it, back in the late 40s and the early 50s is when we started hearing all about alien sightings, spacecraft sightings.
Right, after the bomb, after the big boy and stuff was done.
Exactly, yes. So, you put two and two together and you think, maybe they just landed in the wrong place, got out the wrong place, found out that the little house they came up on wasn't going to be as friendly or, wasn't going to let them have anything nuclear or otherwise. And they took off, we don't know.
Right. And I think people go on a couple different things. So first of all, if you believe in any extraterrestrial life or not, either you have this thing where they're either very, very peaceful and so far advanced they don't make mistakes, they're basically gods, or that they're menacing but they're pretty much infallible and they're extremely evil but they don't make mistakes. Which I know some people say, well, look, if they could transverse through the galaxy, I doubt lightning would take their thing down, but there's mishaps happen, mechanical failures, all kinds of stuff happens, and who's to say that that's what happened that night?
Exactly, and I have brought that fact up. And my grandmother, her big thing was they're not trying to hurt us. Maybe they need help. And of course, my dad and them, they weren't going to have that because they didn't know what they were. They weren't going to let them in the house. So that's where all the gunfire came in.
Well, that's and I didn't mean to walk what you said. Just from being from this area, men get amped up. Mm-hmm. And I know it's for a fact. Good Lord, watch a football game. Imagine if there's something out there, get the truck, let's go. They're not going to come on our land. No, sir. We're going to handle it. And then you get overamped and you sometimes maybe overreacted, which is not what I'm saying necessarily happened. But I know on my end, if something come out and I thought it was going to hurt my family, I'm not going to say if it's ET or if it's going to be something from Independence Day. I'm going to defend what I feel is an encroachment on my property.
Exactly. And see, a lot of people won't look at it that way, though. They'll think, well, if something would come up to my door window, I'd invite them in, or I would shake their hand, or, crazy crap like that. As much as I do, that would not happen. And I laugh at people that say that because I'm thinking, you pee your pants and go run and hide in the closet.
Right. Well, that's that thing like going, I'm 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Well, that guy said that to me. Okay, well, there's that guy. What were you going to say to him? I was going to say that. I was joking. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. There's real easy to talk that over there, but when it's right there in your face, that's a totally different animal. I knew that. Just a slight variation from what we were saying, and I will want to get back to talking about what I got put in the back of that vehicle. They had talked about before, there's a gentleman that talked about what they called black-eyed children, or black-eyed kids, and they speculate that these are some sort of hybrid, which I know we're getting a little bit deep into the rabbit hole, but a hybrid of a humanoid or a human and some sort of alien species or whatever. And whenever these kids come to the door, they come to him and go, hey, can I come in? And people's really weird about it. Well, just need to use your phone. It would only take a minute. And he says, no, it's okay. And they go, you want to let us in? And then it gets real kind of creepy because they get kind of aggressive about it. And I'd heard of one person supposedly that either let him in or was going to let him in, and the kids ended up taking off and they got really very physically ill from it. But that shows you, because most people just aren't going to, at least not, especially not nowadays. I mean, maybe back in the 40s or even before that, if it was somebody you thought was relatively normal to you, for the time, maybe you would consider, that back in the old days, they can borrow a cup of sugar, but those days are kind of long gone. But I was going to say, when the military came, do you know which particular branch was it? Was it Army or?
I'm sure it was Fort Campbell. It was Army.
Okay. I didn't know if it was, maybe they were what you call, what do they call it? When they're military, but they don't necessarily have in certain insignias. Yeah,
I know it's like the Air Force and all that kind of thing. Well, I'm pretty sure it would have been Fort Campbell. And I think, if I remember right, there have been several people that told me that are still alive, that's seen it, that know that it was Fort Campbell, because Fort Campbell was just down the road. It was just too easy.
Right. And I could see where it's like, this is within hopping distance, as we say in this area. Exactly. Probably want to check what this is. This might be a prank. It maybe not. Maybe it's a test the fence. Well, they don't want to say anything about this. Maybe they won't say anything about the next thing that comes.
Right.
Well, let me ask you right quick, to kind of getting back to the one thing, because, I know some from the story from, like, seeing your stuff on, because, you've been on, like, television, you've done movie stuff, you're out there, you're
I've
making...
got lots going on right now, you wouldn't believe, but I can't really talk about it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I want to hear this off air. But definitely, it seemed like, for the fact that they came and not only kind of looked around, they could have very much said, well, we're cording it off, look around, take the dogs. No, they didn't say anything, jump in the car, and we're gone. The fact that they said, this is interesting enough to take. I wondered, did they put it in like a body bag? Or did they just sort of wrap it up in tarps? Or did anyone happen to see roughly the size or shape of what they were putting in the back of the vehicle?
The object they found, it was a small object. The guy who found it was able to stick it like under his shirt and hide whatever it was, like that, then take it over to the truck and take it out and drop it in the truck.
Oh.
So it couldn't have been anything very big.
Huh. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, who knows? It could have been, I don't know how big the creatures were. I don't think they were very large, were they?
No, they were like 3.5 foot tall.
Right. Almost like...
So they were,
Well, I'm sorry. I was just saying, it seems like a lot of times, I don't know how much the audience are aware of some of this, because a lot of times my stuff kind of touches on ghosts and whatnot. There are various types of aliens, and there's humanoid types, and there's reptilian types, and then there's all kinds, and then they have some, they usually call them grays, and they're very kind of spindly, and you would think of like Close Encounters type of creatures, kind of big-headed, big eyes, wrapped around eyes, and that's kind of sort of sounds similar to what you guys saw. There were certain variations, because it seemed like they had more clawed hands and feet, correct?
Well, yeah, they were small. Like I said, they were 3.5 foot tall, and they had huge ears, and that is something you don't normally see on aliens. Actually, like the big tall aliens we see with big heads. These were like small aliens with a big head, but they had huge ears.
Which is strange. Well, I sort of say that is strange, because generally it's almost like a very flat face, holes, slits for, nostrils, like a little tiny slit for a mouth. If there are any ear, holes or anything, it's very, very scaled down, and there's no protrusions. It's just smooth and like a hole. The fact that's, have you spoke with other experiencers and people that's had similar situations like that? Have you found any other case that kind of matches some of the physical attributes that your guys' goblin, which I'll just call it that, had in relation to theirs, or is yours sort of its standalone type of entity?
Ours is pretty standalone. There have been a couple of other people that have come forward and told me about an incident that has happened. In fact, in my second book, I've actually talked to a few people and actually wrote their experiences. So, yeah, there's been a couple others that are pretty similar, but, not exactly the same. But hey, ours is fantastic. I mean, the encounter my family had was it's well loved. I mean, people from all over the place. I mean,
well, obviously, I mean, you've had to the point where you guys actually have festivals and stuff now. Let me ask you this real quick, just for the few people that are just kind of getting into this, or maybe aren't in this region, or I don't know, maybe just got out of the hospital of a coma. Maybe they're just hearing this tonight. Give us the names of your books, who they're through, where you can get them.
Yes, you can get them on my website, which is alienlegacy1955.com. Of course, you can get them on Amazon, any bookstore you can order them from. Gosh, I lost it. What did I say? Oh, the names of them.
That's fine. Yeah,
the first one is actually Alien Legacy, and it is like a more detailed book of the actual story itself. The second book is called The Kelly Green Man, and it has stories people have told me since the first book. I mean, things that people have come forward and told me that happened that night, that they've been told. I mean, there are things that people do not know, because people have been sworn to secrecy. You've got something like that going on, people are going to step in and say, no, you cannot talk about this.
Right.
And so, yes, there's a few things in there that you will definitely find out about in the second book. And I'm currently working on a children's book. I'm going to put this story in a kid's book and scare kids to death.
That's going to be awesome. But make it a pop-up book.
No, just kidding. It's not going to scare them to death. It's really cute. We're in the process of doing all the drawings and stuff right now. But hopefully by next festival time, we'll have it ready. But I mean, and like I said, the festival, we have it every year. This will be our 8th year, believe it or not, already 8 years. And we have it the third weekend of every August. Of course, last year was fantastic because of the eclipse. And the eclipse was actually on the date of the encounter.
Yeah, isn't that quirky?
That was crazy. People were actually frightened that day because they thought the aliens were going to come during the eclipse. They were going to come back to visit. Of course, I don't think anybody got packed off or anything.
No.
But
not for that anyway.
No. It was great, though. It was really, really great. We had people coming from all over the place. We had a documentary crew from Spain that did a documentary, and I mean, it's really, really good. And of course, every year I have people come to the festival that wants, to do interviews and stuff. Actually, right now I'm working on the CW, the channel on TV.
Yes.
They're actually working on a new show right now that they're going to put on, and they're wanting the Kelly story to be in one of their episodes.
That's going to be awesome.
I'm in the process of doing that, and then I've got some other things going on too right now. I mean, like I said, it's a popular story. People love it. It happened to the innocent family, and I think people will relate to, they relate to it.
Right, and I was going to say real quick too, if you can get me the links to whatever, people that are, because like I said, this is going to be on different formats. It's going to be, on SoundCloud. It's going to be on Spreaker. It's going to be at my page on YouTube, which is House of Asher, Stevie Asher, House of Asher, and also through our local affiliate, WPKY, which is now carrying it at the 103, your hometown radio station, home of the Tiger. There's your plug. And I'll make sure to put all those on there as well. But you made a comment, which I think is very the heart of it, and it very much ties into that. It's about a family, and it's more than just boom, okay, here comes these aliens and everybody's running around and it's scary and that's the end of the story. It's a ripple. It's like a big rock in a pond, and then the ripples carry on out, and it's literally carried from the times in, like you said, 1950s up to now. I mean, up to the point where it's affected not just your family, the whole community, to where the Kelly Green Man days exists. Who would have thought all those years ago that this would have had such a sustaining legacy, pardon the pun, legacy. It's great, and it shows you how far the community has come, because I know a lot of people that's had those same sort of experiences, and they're kind of pariahs in the community. People just like, we'll talk to them in church, and there's this and that. Not quite as bad now, but especially in that time, you didn't need that trouble. Y'all didn't either.
And that's why they didn't. I mean, they let it. It's like my daddy told them. He set them down the next morning afterwards, and he told them, he says, no good can come of this. Because he's seen how the people that were there the night before were laughing and carrying on about the whole situation. And so he told them, he says, we need to forget this. We need to let it go. But of course, it wasn't going to be, because everybody was wanting to know more and more and more. People were wanting the interviews and stuff, and
it was a feeding frenzy.
It was crazy.
Sure, and that's the thing. There's a, and I think it's a very human thing, and I think everybody's had that. There's a happening, there's a moment in time, be it Beatlemania, I'm going way back, Beatlemania or whatever, the hippies and this and that, whatever the current thing, duck faces, whatever.
Yeah.
There's something that happens in an area or in a community or in whatever, in society, in whatever societal circles you're in, and people will respond to it in a couple different ways, but the ones that really dig it hard and want to just roll around in it, they just love it. And it's got to be, it seems like you've really worn it well with grace, and made it something like, you can't beat them, join them. If I can make something positive out of this, why not do that? Kind of a purse out of a sow's ear, to use that old expression. But coming up, as a next generation through this type of stuff, were you still kind of dealing with the baggage of that, or was it by the time you were, especially getting into middle school and high school, which is a horrible time for kids, especially girls anyway, was it that go, well, hey, it's,
No, we did not talk about this. This was not ever mentioned. It was never brought up. No.
Oh, really? Okay.
No. During school, no, we never talked about it. Nobody ever knew it. I didn't, boyfriends, I didn't talk to them about it. This was something that was just kept because my daddy didn't want to talk about it if it were to be brought up. So it was just best to let it be and not let it. And the only reason I got back into it was because back in 2005, it was the 50th anniversary, and Hopkinsville had this big convention festival type thing for the Green Men, and they asked me to be a part of it, and so I did. And so I learned right then and there that people did not know the story.
Right.
My daddy's name wasn't right. They told crazy stuff, like Billy Ray, one of the guys that was there that night, was abducted, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, I knew the story. I grew up with it.
Right.
And so I knew right then there I had to do something. That's when I wrote the first book. And then when they came 8 years ago and asked me if it would be okay to use the Kelly story for their festival every year to try to raise money to help Kelly build their park and convention center and stuff, I thought, wow, what a great idea. This story that tormented my poor little family is going to actually help people.
Right.
And that's what we've done with it.
Well, and you took what would have had been preconceived as kind of a dirty little secret and something to suppress, and you basically sewed it into wings and flew with it. And I'm not trying to glamorize it necessarily, or make it bigger than whatever, but that's kind of what you did, and I think it's something you had to do. You go through a situation, you're going to either be crippled by it, or you're going to be strengthened by it, and if you can possibly make a positive spin out of it and learn something from it and return something back to the world in a positive way. This is a little bit off subject, but Edgar Casey, was around that area, and I knew that he died, I think it was in 45. I wonder, what he would have said in regards of some of that. I don't know if you guys happen to knew Mr. Casey, but I know he had talked about things about interaction with aliens and different stuff like that, they really believed that this stuff was active and this stuff was going on at the time. It's so strange. I never realized there was so much, in air quotes, paranormal activity, be it call it what you want, but that's what I kind of label it as, just because it's something that's beyond most people's understandings, most people's life experiences.
Right, and if you don't really look into it, you don't know, because it's not something that's just going to pop up at you. Of course, you've got your TV shows and stuff, but, unless you really get into it and start really diving, you don't really know what's out there as far as that's concerned. And because people don't talk about it, they just don't. If you know somebody that's had an experience, you're probably lucky that you get them to even say something.
Right.
Because, we had our little shop downtown in Princeton. People would come in there and talk to me about stuff. And I guess they did it because they knew that I would listen to them and I wouldn't laugh at them. And that's a big problem. People have experiences and stuff, and they won't talk about it with anybody because they're afraid of being laughed at.
Right. Well, you know how people are. At first, they're gonna laugh something off because they think it's ridiculous, or kind of give that nervous laughter, like, no, that couldn't possibly happen. Could it? And then, or somebody maybe rails against their, be it religious or whatever sort of beliefs, and they take it as an attack on their faith. Sometimes, which I've never quite understood that.
I haven't either.
Something I was kind of curious about, and it made me think about how each generation does things differently, and each generation digests stories and life experiences differently. There's so many like gamers now, and you're probably going to see where I'm going with this. I'm amazed that somebody said, why don't we make some sort of role play game, or why don't we make some sort of video game or interactive this and that? Has anyone ever approached you like that? And what would your answer to something like that be?
No, not really. I wouldn't care. I mean, if they wanted to, whatever. Hey, but I don't know. I hadn't really thought about the gaming world. I think my son had said something about it a long, long time ago about a game with aliens, but I don't know. That's just something. I'm not a gamer. I don't get into anything. So, that's something like,
I'm not throwing any rocks. Now, like I said, yeah, my gaming days are kind of gone. Once I started having a mess of kids and getting out there.
Yeah.
Which I know some guys that are young parents and guys that are my age. It's just I think I just lost interest in it. I was always more about playing music and writing and things like that, and that's kind of where my energies went to.
Right.
But that would be kind of interesting, or like Kelly Green Man, the animated series, a comic book. I know. I'm just looking at all this stuff because I was a big comic kid, thinking, man, that would be awesome.
I've actually got a couple of comic books that were made back in the day of the Kellys. One of them is X-Files. It's Scully and Mulder.
True. Okay.
So there has been some made.
I just think, I don't know. To me, it's very interesting to me, especially the fact that I know you somewhat, because there have been a few little things like in Stanford, Kentucky, there was an encounter, and I think the more like you were talking about, once people know it's a safe haven, once people know that you're not going to guffaw them out of the store, whatever, start preaching at them. People will talk to you, because when I was working, in the penitentiaries, when I would share, look, I've bumped into stuff. I'm not goofy. I'm not seeing whatever, this deity or whatever in my toast, or hearing stuff coming out of my radiator telling me to do whatever. Once they know, well, he's relatively got sense and he's seen stuff, well, he's not judging me. And then once people go, okay, he kind of gets it. And that's when you get that, because when I was doing my book signings for the penitentiary book, so many people come to me at the signings going, oh, well, that's really interesting. I've had a similar experience, or did you hear about whatever on such and such walk? And I'm like, no, I don't. And so then they started giving me stories. I actually had enough where I'm going to put out another book about the pen. But how much, have you considered putting another edition, like a third installment, to do kind of like a trilogy of this and that?
I've already been hit up for a third one. I just don't know if I can handle a third one.
No, see, I can understand it.
I think I'm going to do the Kids Book next. See how that goes. And then maybe think about, I don't know, another one. But yeah, I know what you mean, though, because like at the festival every year, I always have people come up and tell me stories. It never fails. Because they know they can, and I won't laugh at them or ridicule them in any way. So, I get that.
Well, there's a thing, too, that you can spend too much time. It's kind of like being in a bath too long. You're going to get pruny. It's going to wear on you a little bit, and sometimes you need to step back from it. You were talking about a children's book. Me and my wife are actually working on a book about special needs children, and I'm doing I'm going to plan on doing the animation for it, and just. Because I don't want to be the spook guy, because I love kids and this and that, and I don't want to be like kind of like the spooky guy at, the spooky uncle at the party, I want to have, because there's a whole other facet, just like you have a whole other facet, obviously, because you want to do children's books, but it does seem like once, like you said, once that the dam is open, and then everybody you're inundated with all this different stimulus and different stuff and ideas and offers and whatnot. But you have to protect yourself, because a lot of people don't realize there really is a commitment that you have to do when you sit down to do a book. And even if it's your own story, you really have to collect your thoughts. You have to get stuff chronologically right. You got to make sure, okay, well, let me make sure my memory is correct as opposed to what actually happened. So you have to go back and re-fact check everything, and then if there's any new information that's come in since your experience, then you want to include that. And like I said, there's a reason that everyone's not writing books up and down the block, because right. it can be involved.
It is. It can be tedious.
Indeed.
Yes.
But let me ask you a few things. Like I said, we're winding down and probably about the last 5 minutes of the interview. I know you've mentioned your books, and would you mention some of the names of some of the different series that you've been on, and some of the different movie related stuff? Because I know you've had mentions and things, and like The Caretaker, which is one of the local movies that was made here, and which has got to make you feel good too, that people still want to do, take time to do that, because they don't necessarily have to do that, but it's always nice to do that. And I know, at least on my end, that's one of the big reasons I want to have you on, to tell you thank you. And, also, obviously people, I think, will really enjoy the story, because it's so interesting. And the fact that it happened here. Everyone thinks about, like, Roswell or Rendlesham in England and places, but they don't think there's so much incredible experiences and things and places and just
there is.
Lives
people
that's
don't realize everything that's gone on around. I mean, it's just in Caldwell County. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's going on around there, and people don't realize it or have, gone on around there. And that's just like Kelly up the road. I mean, it's not that far from Princeton.
No, not really. It's not.
And it's crazy that something like that can happen just right there in the back door. Sure, it was 1955, but it's still, let's say it wouldn't happen again. That's why, doors at night.
Oh my God. Well, that's the thing. I mean, just like to say, it was just like, well, Moses parted the sea, but that was a long time ago. But he parted the sea. Come on, that's big time. That's life-changing stuff. I'm not sure if I told you, I'm pretty sure I did, when I was a kid, teenager, I had, it wasn't like it was a close enough encounter for me, where I saw something in the sky that looked kind of cigar-shaped, and I thought it was a cloud. Yeah. It didn't go across the moon, and it ended up kind of phasing, almost like it did like a slight turn and went in behind the moon. No lights, no sound. I didn't see any green guys. E.T. didn't come down and eat my Reese's Pieces. And that was enough. Just having that was enough for me.
I've seen several things. Of course, we've moved. We live in Brandenburg now, but when we lived in Princeton, we lived out in the county. And we have seen several things out that way. I don't know what to tell you people, but there have been other people that live around that area out in the county that have seen things. And people don't know. You just don't talk about that kind of thing. You just don't realize what's around you. I think a lot of that is we push it off on Fort Campbell. Fort Campbell being down the road is our
scapegoat
excuse for everything.
Right.
Fort Campbell, they're just testing stuff tonight. That's our excuse right there for anything we see.
Right. Testing flares or whatnot. Yeah. Weather balloons.
A lot of stuff that I have seen out there, that ain't no Fort Campbell going on. That's something else.
Like not even the right direction, not even near the right direction. Well, and as we're, like I said, we're winding it down, but I do want to ask you, well, obviously it's like you've had other experiences, and that was going to be my next question. It seems like a lot of times people who do have experiences tends to kind of run in families, and it does seem to kind of follow in generations, which I don't know if you're comfortable talking about. Like, I don't know if your kids have had any experiences themselves and stuff, but
my son has, yes.
Okay, see,
I'll say that right now.
Okay, see, because I could almost say for sure that that's very true. Which also, which we hadn't even got into that element of it. You have a lot of Native American in your blood, and you seem like very spiritual to me. And it seems like people who are working, I'm going to sound so hippy-dippy when I say this, and I'm doing air quotes, higher physical or a vibrational plane, that you're trying to be open to stuff. I think that's also is a situation when you will be more open to experiences, and that you will be able to kind of absorb that and not just go, oh, it's Fort Campbell, or no, well, just that's a play of my eyes, especially if it's a continual situation throughout the years.
Right, exactly. Because I've had paranormal stuff happen too. It's not just the alien factor; it's other stuff too.
Well, it ties in. It really does.
Yeah. So I've had ufologists tell me that because my family had this experience, that I more than likely may have one myself sometime. Of course, it hasn't happened yet, and hopefully it won't, because I don't want to see any little green, gray, or any other kind of color man. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So hopefully they'll stay away from me. I hope so.
Well, they talk about, and, again, we're getting ready to wind her down, but, people are always waiting for disclosure and stuff. And I think that there's probably been contact, and I think that if there was anything that was suppressed, especially in the time, I think it was to maintain the status quo, to not upset the apple cart. But then I do think there are probably some people that's like, look, well, if we do this, we're going to lose control of the people. So I mean, that is a little conspiracy. So pardon me, folks, but that's just
I can go on a whole another rant.
Oh yes, well
that'll take you another hour.
Well, we'll have you back for another show. How about that? But I'll tell you what, Geraldine, I do appreciate you being on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade this out real quick, and I want to make sure to thank all the folks for showing up and spending some time with me and Miss Geraldine Stith and her amazing story, her family's amazing story, and continuing legacy of the Hopkinsville Goblin, Kelly Green Man, whatever you call it. But I want everybody to enjoy the last bits of the sun, but as night falls and the shadows grow long, I want you to check out your window, check under your bed, check your closet. There may be a little green man in there. Maybe he's looking for parts for his engine. Who knows why? Maybe he's looking for Reese's Pieces. Maybe he's hungry. But until next time, I want you guys to be safe, love yourselves, love one another, and above all, stay scared. Until next time, everybody, goodbye.